Hey, my name is Patrick, and today we're going to talk about what can go wrong with your Solex 481 carburetor and all sorts of issues that you can encounter, and also how to check whether your carburetor has any of those problems. So here we have on the bench a carburetor plus some extra spare items, parts and whatnot. I'm going to show you a few things. So this is your typical carburetor, or specifically Solex 481. And there are a bunch of cool features about this carburetor, and unfortunately a bunch of stuff that was gonna drive you crazy. So now one of the first things you can start checking is whether the kind of like if when the car is still, when the carburetor is still in a car, you can easily check certain things whether they work. So you can check the dashboard, whether they often leak. This dashboard right here often leaks. You can see if there is a proper amount of stuff pull off happening here. Again, this sometimes leaks, but this is easy to fix. Yeah, those are the fundamentals that you can check. You can also check your accelerator pump and a few other functions. All right, so let's go over it and figure out. So this carburetor right now, it's on your car, and let's see how we can check it. So first thing first, there will be some kind of vacuum thing connected to this carburetor. So remembering not to disconnect too many things, you just disconnect this part right here. Grab yourself a very inexpensive vacuum pump, and then connect it to this carb right here. And then I'm gonna do it in such a way that hopefully you can see what it's doing. Or rather, maybe I should just do it like this so that you can see. So, and I'm starting to putting up some vacuum on it. First of all, if I can see that the needle on my vacuum gauge is not moving, then that means that whatever's happening in here, it's actually holding the vacuum. But if you notice nothing is really happening yet, it's because the spring and internal thing prevents it. You need to apply certain amount of vacuum to this thing to see an effect. So let's see. Oh, around 15. So around 15 psi, that's where you're gonna start seeing things happening. And if you notice, this plunger went back. So if I go release the vacuum, it goes forward. So you notice there is a space right here. So that means this plunger moves back. And I'm gonna release it again. Alright. So that means this dashpot is working. Very good. So I know this is this part fails. I have half a dozen carburetors, if not more, at this shop right now, and half the time this dashpot fails. Now the one that fails a lot is this dashpot right here. So again, I think this is a working carburetor. So, and I checked it before, so I'm gonna show you how that it works. So once again, we connect our vacuum pump, and once again, so that you can see it better. Here, okay. So we should observe on a vacuum, this plunger right here should pull back, and sure enough, it's pulling back. I'm gonna release it right now. Okay, slow is going forward, and once again we're gonna and it's holding. Now remember, even though the gauge shows that we're losing a little bit of vacuum, but so you know what, it's not perfect, but it's good enough to be doing what it's supposed to be doing, which means to hold this thing right here. And because it has vacuum is continuously applied by the engine, so the fact that it's leaking a little bit, it's not a problem, because the engine keeps on constantly doing this, reinstating the vacuum into the system. All right, so we know that this guy is working. Incidentally, I want to release totally, huh? It is working now. So those two dashpots are working. Great. Now let me just really quickly show you a dashpot that's not working. So here's similar dashpot, as you can see, and then I put some tape on it so I could remember which one is working, which one is not, and then I'm gonna put some vacuum pump on it, and you will see that it's doing nothing. Actually, so it is doing enough to pull this plunger back, but it's also the vacuum disappears immediately the moment you introduce it into the system. So that means it's kind of working. Yeah, I would not necessarily put it on my car, but it's kind of working. All right, so this semi-working, semi-not working dashpot. Yeah, and here is the non-working dashpot right here. Let's see. Of course, I'm going to discover that it's actually working very well, as sometimes is the case. And why not? I would rather have an extra working dashpot than not. So we're going to put yeah, it's leaking a lot. I wonder, well, it is kind of working, and it's not leaking that much. So I would not totally give up on this dashpot just yet. But anyway, at least you know kind of how to see working, non-working. If it's losing lots of vacuum immediately, then it's basically it's toast. It's not good. So yeah. Alright, so far we're working with our carburetor on the engine. So far this is working. So far this is working. Great. Another thing you can test. I'm gonna turn this carburetor on so that it's easier to see. You can test this pull off. It's a choke pull off, and what the function is here. Except you know what, this may not necessarily work so well. And yeah, so I put pressure on it and it's holding steady, so that means this diaphragm right here is doing something. And then if I was going to set the choke right here, let's just release the throttle to reset the choke. And now if I apply some vacuum to this choke pull off, this thing should just do this, move it just slightly. Let's see if it's doing. Oh, there you go. That means it's working. One more time. Okay, great. And so this choke pull off is working. If you care, this is basically so that there's a little bit of air entering the system when the choke is set, and the engine just started. So now we have a kind of decently working, or rather carburetor, that is its components are working quite well. You could also test if you're going to get fancy. I mean, so far the thing was very simple. Disconnect this vacuum. We discovered that this dashpot is working. Reconnect it, then disconnect this vacuum, which usually where's my vacuum line? There was somewhere around my red vacuum line. Here. This vacuum line would be usually connected something like this, generally speaking. Yeah, so you just disconnect this vacuum line, check whether this dashpot is working, reconnect it, then likewise this vacuum line for the chuck pull off will be connected something like this. Once again, you pull this off, connect your gauge to this, and you should be good to go. Another thing, if you want to get fancy, although it's very easy to check it on the bench, but much harder because then you have to disconnect this. This is your fuel pressure regulator. So the fuel enters right here, and then in theory enters to the fuel bowl. But then the excess fuel, when inside the regulator it reaches certain, there's a spring, and if the excess fuel goes back via this nipple to the fuel tank. So let's see, let's test it really quickly with that hour. That's going to be a bit hard to do, I think, because well, at least we know so at least the diaphragm is holding. We're testing that Otherwise, if it's not, then the engine can be pulling fuel via this nipple at the bottom. All right, so those are the fundamentals of this carburetor that we could check on the bench. Now the second part is then we remove this carburetor and then we test it on the bench. So the next stage will require us to disassemble this carburetor, which I'm not going to do with this specific car because I have plenty of spare parts that we can utilize. So this is our bottom part of the carburetor. This is our middle part of the carburetor. And this is the top of our carburetor. I just grab random parts from God knows where. Let me just change this one because I know that this is a good one, proper. Alright. One of the plagues that this carburetor encounters is the warping issue, which basically means that this part right here, there's a screw that goes into this part of the middle of the carburetor. And then on the top of it, you have the very large oversized air cleaner. People tighten on this one, and then this part right here, the middle part of the carb, gets pulled back up, while those parts right here in the corner are holding the carburetor down. So you will discover that on many carburetors, this part right here is much higher than this part, than the corners. And likewise, on this top of the carburetor, you will discover that the middle part is higher than the corners, and that will create lots of issues, drivability issues, usually related to the vacuum leaks. When the vacuum leak happens, just the basic mechanics. When the vacuum leak happens, so this is a typical carburetor where this is the throttle plate, and then the engine is pulling the fuel air mixture through, let's say, this idle jet from the fuel bowl. But if there are vacuum leaks happening, this force, the pulling force right here, it's much smaller, and that means that the amount of fuel that the engine can pull from the fuel bowl is that much lesser. So people then they try to open up the idle screw to allow bigger, higher mixture, but that complicates things in other elements and so on. And in essence, you have air leaks happening in your carburetor. So your carburetor will be working properly. It needs to be a tight device. So let's just show you how. So here we have that I know it's a bad kind of curved thing. And then you basically take a straight edge and look at it, and then try to see whether how bad. So the edge is actually not bad. This is actually quite a good top. Let's see. Let me just test it like this. Yeah, this is actually quite a straight top. So this is not bad at all. This top can be easily reused in rebuild. So let's just take this bottom part that I know is very badly curved. I can even see it with my own eyes. And then there you go. I mean, I'm not sure you can see it. Just put a white piece of paper under it, so it's easier to see. I mean, this is comical. How much? We're talking like almost 2 millimeters. So this middle part is raised 2 millimeters higher than this part, and the middle part as well. Yeah, God, like 2 or 3 millimeters. The middle is 2 or 3 millimeters higher than edges. And likewise, if you do it like this, actually, this is incidentally lesser. It's probably only 1 millimeter. And yeah, the bottom line, this whole part is raised up. Let's flip it upside down and see what has happened. Whether the metal stretched. No, it is stretched a little bit because now this part is higher by around 1 millimeter. So that means something along the middle has stretched. This is not bad. Like this is not bad actually. So yeah, you have to kind of look at the different ways, and then you discover how much of a distortion you have. So that also we understand the bottom part of the carburetor almost always is straight in any directions. So this is a different metal, much stronger metal. Well, there's a few things happening. First of all, because it's stronger metal, it doesn't experience the distortion. Second of all, the problem is also the screw that goes into the middle part that distorts the middle part. So in other words, even though there is a hole, there's no screw going into it, so there's really no way to distort this part. So this part usually is very nice and straight. The problems start with the middle part, and then consequently when the middle is pushing on the top horn right here, you're gonna discover that this part often gets pushed up. Let me see if the other part maybe I have. Yeah, this one's definitely curved. Let's see how much. Great. Give you a so-called curved part, and there's no curve. Oh, there's a little bit. Oh, wait, it's small enough. It's maybe like 1/3 of a millimeter. I think a gasket could take care of it. Although here I'm getting almost a millimeter. And then, so yeah. So in other words, this is the offending part. And yeah, there is a problem when those two surfaces do not fully meet. Let's see. Oh my God! Now you can see this the hole right here. So yeah, that's the. Imagine that you have this sort of. Hold on, I didn't. It's not bad actually. No, it's not ideal. You can see how much. Yeah. So the question always is it big, so big that the gasket cannot take care of it? I would say this is pretty significant. This is yeah, 1 millimeter. A gasket paper is thinner than around 1 millimeter. So there's no way you're going to be able to properly fix that. Also somebody fixed those parts in the wrong way. I'm not gonna deal with it. So let's see if this. So this is my proper, nice and straight, perfect straightness, perfect straightness, perfect straightness. So let's see if we put this random top body with this perfectly straight element, what we can get here. So. I mean, it's a complicated thing, as in that's where your sensibility in how to fix carburetor comes in. There's clearly a space here versus a space here, and then because of that, let's see, there's a little bit of space. Yeah, I mean, it will be a catch-22, as in can a gasket fill those holes? I suspect, you know, if you maybe create a thicker gasket, then yeah, you should be able to, you have those parts, kind of merge them together and then just add our perfectly, or usually perfect bottom part. See how it works. Oh yeah, you know what? With a thicker gasket, I think this is a very fixable carburetor. We can make it work. This middle part, oof, no. Now, other ways to fix an issue like this, yes, we can talk about it later when you try to flatten the part using an oven, but it's just like, listen, if this is the sort of work that you're doing, then you're comfortable doing that, then that means you don't need a video like this to watch. But yeah, so those are the functions. So let's say what happens if your carburetor indeed is as crooked as this one. Let me just double check. Yeah, it's terrible. Get another carburetor or get one of the Weber replacements, because this is going to be such a tough thing for you to make it work. So yeah, I hope this is a very basic, kind of slightly complicated, as in very worldly and rambling explanation of how to spot a working and not working carburetor. And of course there are other things to consider, but this is for a moment, it should be good enough for you to start with tinkering with on your engine. That's that.